Good afternoon, fellow citizens. Welcome to another episode of the Youth Roundtable. And this time around, we are discussing issues around youth promoting democracy in Uganda. My name is Masesa Demiano, and I'm your show host today, stepping in for Ndugu Matanda, who is just got some technical issues and he has not been able to join us today. But of course, we may not wait for him. Just in case he joins in, that would be a good go for us. But for now, let us have the conversation rolling. And I'll need to start off. We are, as a young people, it is a time that we need to be active and also looking forward to democracy issues in Uganda. And today I'm joined by a panel of young people who have been so active in the politics of Uganda, who have been so active in the youth movement, who are playing a part in the politics of their spaces, especially the political parties, but also the youth movements in the civil and political issues around the country. And on the panel, I'm joined by one, other than, and the panel is full. I'm joined by a lady, and she's called Lynnet Nanyonjo, and she's a member of Lynnet is a youth leader and the People's Progressive Party and Interparty Youth Platform member. Lynnet, good afternoon and you're welcome to join the conversation.
Good afternoon, Damian, and everybody that is joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you, Lynnet. Good to see you and also touching base. And the other person is Akampulira Walakira, is of course a research associate at Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, GLISS, but also is a speaker of Kawempe division. Akampulira, you're welcome, sir. And of course, a National Unity Platform party member.
Good afternoon, Damien, and all our viewers.
Then also finally, and for now, until we are joined on by the other person, is Akampa Rugaba, is a founder for the Youth Advocacy Foundation, Uganda, that is YAFU. But he also says that he's one person who really identifies himself as a Museveniist, and he's so NRM. Akampa Tanbull, you're welcome.
Thank you, Damian, and good afternoon to all the listeners out there. Yes, I'm a member of NRM, and I support President Museveni. And I supported him in the previous elections for just one term. I do for the Senate.
Thank you very much, Tanbull. We shall have to interrogate that further. But right there, to start the discussion and not to waste any time, I need to invite Akampulira. Straight away, Akampulira, I need you to give us the historical perspective of democracy in Uganda and how it affects institutions and the general rule of the game.
Thank you very much, Damien, once again for having me. Very important, question. But I'd like to first and foremost say that we do not have democracy, and we've never had democracy in Uganda. What we have is what many writers have described as a hybrid dictatorship. It has elements of democracy, but also has big features of dictatorship. So although we have since acquisition of independence from the British colonialists have organized elections, and maybe most regularly since the promulgation of 1995 Constitution, these elections have been, for the greater part of them, mad with violence, rigging, voter bribery. Although it is, although elections are a great feature of democracy, these elections have to be qualified that for them to be a great pillar of democracy, they must be free, fair, and transparent. We have never had such an election in Uganda, and therefore we cannot begin to lie ourselves that because we have something akin to an election that is not, that is an election, and therefore we have democracy. What theoretically is described as an election is not what we've been having. And that informs my description of the state of political and governance affairs in this country. So, Damian, I felt that it is very, very important right at the onset for panelists and viewers to be on the same page when we come to the discussion on democracy and democratization in Uganda.
Thank you very much, Akampulira, for that brief go on the conversation. I want also possibly to invite in the only lady we have for now, Lynnet. I want you also to just throw us some light on the historical perspective of really of our democracy in Uganda, and from your angle as a young person under PPP, what do you see, and how it affects the game?
Thank you, Damian. As a young person, I think the political terrain in Uganda has been the same, if you ask me. But also, as young people, we have been handed the mantle. For a very long time, we have been crying for the mantle. Now that it's handed to us, it's up to us to use it wisely, because we usually say, "Oh, we are the future of tomorrow. We are the future of tomorrow." I am fortunate to have started my political journey early enough, but now I am soon becoming a senior youth. But if you ask me what are your achievements, I'll still be advocating for spaces. Incidentally, this is the song for every young person. We have not initiated enough young youth to come and fit into our footsteps, because we have inherited a song that has been sung for long, that we are the leaders of tomorrow and we need spaces. Even when the spaces are given to us, we do not do the needful so that the narrative changes. So for me, I think looking at the political terrain right now, with a parliament that has almost 70% young people or useful leaders, and local councils and LC chairpersons, very useful people, we have now been put on a pedestal, and that pedestal is going to judge us whether the song we've been singing is the right song, or we have not been doing what we have been singing. Have we walked the talk, or we are just singing the song? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynnet. And it's a question that I will need to constantly have a conversation over here, whether we move the talk and what is changing. But let me try to bring in Tanbull, Akampa. You're a founder of an organization that really takes young people and is so much involved in governance in Uganda. I would want you, and also listening from what Walakira said, Akampulira says that we've not had any elections in Uganda that are free and fair. Of course, there has not been any show of democracy, according to him. It is just from then that I would want to invite you and ask you, how far has the regime moved in respecting most of the accepted freedoms of democracy in our society? And by these, I'm looking at the free press, local and parliamentary. Of course, Lynnet talked about that, and also the presidential elections. Have they been free and fair?
Okay. Thank you for that question. You see, democracy comes in different shapes. It might not be just about having elections which are ought to be free and fair. When it comes to the regime creating spaces, okay, by the virtue that we have different political parties that are taking center stage in participating in these elections, I think that is democracy itself. Because if you're to look at the parties that participated in the previous elections and the candidates, each majority of the registered parties produced candidates, okay, who participated at different levels, okay. The elections were organized amidst whichever environment, because we were in COVID-19. The environment was about COVID-19. And in one or the other, I was one of those few people who are advocating that if it were possible, we should not have, we shouldn't have held elections. But because of the circumstances around, we had to continue with the elections. So, were the elections organized? Yes. Did the political parties participate? Yes, they did. Did they participate in elections? Yes, they did. Did the people come out in large numbers to vote? Yes, they did. So for me, that is a form of democracy. It is there. You cannot say there is no democracy when political parties are participating freely, but at the same time you have you have candidates produced from all over the country. NUP is a young party, for example, National Unity Platform. It came and had to compete with NRM, it had to compete with FDC, it had to compete with UPC, it had to compete with DP. And it has the second largest number of members of parliament in the August House as we speak now. So now, there was competition, there were elections that were free and fair. If elections were not free and fair, NUP would not have taken FDC's position in parliament. Okay? The only challenge that we have in Uganda, our democracy, that we face is that we have NRM that has been in power, okay, for all these years. We have seen the same man, we have seen the same president over and over again. So now, when majority Ugandans, especially the young people, see NRM producing or bringing back the same old man with a hat, then they think there is no democracy. And that is how they get it. That is where we get it wrong, okay? Because democracy, if you are a president and you have a position of being the #1 CEO of this country, democracy is about those who are already in charge, who have power, to struggle to maintain the power, okay? That is how I look at it. You cannot just give power to people on a silver platter, okay? They have to compete, okay? They have to compete to take power. Those who take power, they struggle to keep it. Those who don't have power, they struggle to take it from them. So it is a matter of time, and there are spaces that are there, were created constitutionally for the young people, but these spaces, personally, I don't believe in them, because as young people, we need to take up, we need to unite, we need to use our numbers and take up especially the mainstream politics, okay? The mainstream politics. Let more young people come out and offer themselves to take up leadership. Yes, people will say it is expensive. Every exercise, democracy itself is expensive, is an expensive venture, okay? And we are strengthening, democracy in Uganda is being strengthened each and every day, each and every time. For example, what happened?
Tanbull, I just want to bring us close. I just want us to get back somewhere. You talked of elections being free and fair, because then you saw NUP taking up the biggest slot and possibly now being the biggest political party. And that to you seemed like it's a free and fair contest because it took over FDC slots? Is that what you're trying to say?
What I'm saying is that for a young political party, okay, to come and take up slots, more slots than these political parties that have been there, then it means our democracy is growing, is being strengthened each and every day, each and every time. That is a sign of democracy, okay? If there was no democracy, JEEMA would be having more members of parliament. UPC, DP are the oldest political parties. They would be having more members of parliament in parliament. But by the virtue that the young energies from NUP, National Unity Platform, came and convinced some constituencies, okay, to vote out even opposition, to vote out even NRM, it is a sign that we have democracy. Because if it was,
do you think that that's really signifies a show of democracy? I need to invite in Akampulira, because now you are a member of NUP, and of course you were a contestant at Makere Muluka 3, and I think you also won. That's why you're also the speaker of Kawempe division, and you participated fully. Picking from what Tanbull has just said, that because you're a young party and of course you're able to take up all these slots from nowhere, that shows that we really had a free and fair contest, and therefore it is a show of a growing democracy in Uganda.
Damien, of course, what Tanbull has said is very disappointing. I was trying to follow the logical argument in what he's saying, and I mean, I don't know. I couldn't find any logical link, to be fair. But let me also comment, I mean, on the, when you're introducing Tanbull, you said he's from the civil society. And then you also said that he's a supporter of the NRM, and he confirmed that. I don't know, maybe I need to be educated, but I thought that the civil society was a different kind of sector that is supposed to be non-partisan. I will need to be educated further on that. But going to the comments of Tanbull, democratization is measured by clear parameters. Say that because a new party was able to, in a way, perform better than the older parties, that signifies democracy. I think that's unfortunate and less intellectual engagement. Democracy is measured by various factors like the extent of freedom of expression, freedom of association, and the, the civic spaces available for various players, including the civil society, to participate in various processes of a country. And he talked that elections do not necessarily need to be free and fair in order for a South to be democratic. Of course, that's absurd. All that Tanbull said is quite absurd, because an election is a most secret activity in any democratic society. It is the foundation of any legitimate government. The power that government officials or any government worthy of the name that it exercises flows directly from the people. So, and this process of people committing their power to the authority of the government takes place precisely during elections. So the 2021 elections were marred, number one, by violence. Commentators and other scholars have said that it was the most violent election in the history of this country. And I could give you scores of names of my own friends that participated in these elections who are now dead, many of them young people. Many of them are still incarcerated, illegally incarcerated in various prisons. The presidential team of Mr. Kyagulanyi himself, 100 of them, his immediate team were arrested during a presidential campaign in Kalangala. Many of them still languish in incarceration centers. So when someone comes and says that because we're able to win in some places, and let's be specific, these places where we won are mainly urban areas, because these are areas where there is comparatively higher levels of exposure, where there is higher levels of activism. For someone to confuse that with the extent of freeness or fairness of the process, of course, is being out of touch with the realities. And again, Damian, let me quote what Professor Oroko Nyango has said. He wrote a book called Controlling Consent, and he says that in emerging democracies or hybrid democracies like Uganda, what we have is controlling consent. In other words, the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be an independent body responsible for organizing free and fair election, is controlled by the incumbent to do and organize an election that produces results that are in accordance with the interest of the incumbent. So the processes are supposed to run not naturally, not freely, not independently, but are supposed to run in accordance with the expected outcomes of he who hires them. So when you participate in an election that is controlled by the state and it produces these results, of course, if you're a lazy analyst or if you're a preference falsifier, or if you're a regime sympathizer, you can quickly come and say, oh, look, the oppositions have won places here and there, therefore we have elections. That is unfortunate, and as young people, Damian, we need to honestly interrogate these questions deeply so that we can able to, in a meaningful way, forge a way forward for our country.
Thank you very much, Akampulira. I need to invite in Lynnet. Lynnet, I know you'd want to have a take on this area and make your possible interjection or something. But I also need to ask you briefly. You had talked about the young people trying to move. They have a lot of apathy and they're not really taking up political engagements. I don't know, they are so much closed out from the spaces. I need to know why, yet here we are seeing that the NUP, for example, is credited for really taking up and showing cause and standing up to the occasion. I wonder, what is the difference? Why is your sector and why is the group from your side having this kind of apathy within them?
Thank you. Thank you, Damian. I didn't say the youth are not taking up the spaces. Actually, my take is we have accumulated the spaces. We're producing as young and they put tech as a generation, as young people. I credit young people, the Akampulira, the ones that are in parliament right now. I credit them. But what footstep are we making on the democracy of this country? What footstep are we making on the overall conversation of democracy and spaces as young people? That's my take. Now, speaking of elections and the irregular elections, I really want to agree with Walakira, the new Musanje Kabaka. Really, it is very unfortunate to hear people like Akampulira, the gentleman, the previous speaker before Akampulira came in, say we have democracy in Uganda. It saddens my spirit. Akampa. It saddens my spirit because when elections happened in Ghana, one of the countries that emulate democracy in Africa, we did not hear of violence. We did not hear of internet lockdown. We did not hear of all of the atrocities that happened in our elections. The malpractices in our election clearly say that we do not have democracy. Even the civil society where Akampa subscribes to, we had a total shutdown of the new youth, which was a collective consortium of civil society organizations that speak for democracy. So now if someone like Akampa comes and says, oh, we have democracy, it was a free and fair election, it saddens my spirit. And then this is also a young person. So you see our divergence in conversations. We have young people that are okay with the status quo and young people that are in the status quo but are not sure of what course of direction they want to take. So for me, elections were not free and fair. The irregularities were way beyond considerable amount.
It's a different one. Yes, go on. Sorry about that.
Can I continue?
Go on. Yes, go on.
The irregularities were way too many, and I think our democracy in Uganda is, as a young man, wants us to regulate Uganda, which is a multi-party dispensary, into a one-party system. Because you cannot tell me we have democracy because of the multi-party dispensation. This is our right. It's a constitutional right that was given to us, and we ought to participate. Unless Akampa is telling me that even with the multi-party dispensation, we should sit on our butts and let the NRM where he subscribes to do everything for us, then that's when he will feel there are irregularities and the democracy is not literally happening in Uganda, which is very shaking and weakening for a young person to speak. In my opinion, I don't want to be a sadist. I have moved away from the politics of being a sadist. In my opinion, I think as young people, we need to reconcile our differences and sit on the table. Now that Akampa is in Miriano, he does not know the pain. I think he has also felt the pain of connecting to internet and not really literally connecting. Does that the same pain happen in Miliano when he's going to have meetings? No. We are in the digital era, but we still have places where internet cannot go. We are in a digital era where people are still looking for jobs. Now in Uganda, we have a generation of young people that have been cut off for 2 years straight, not going to school. And if Akampa still calls that democracy, it weakens my spirit. And this is a young person who has space to speak and speaks like this. And then we still say young people need spaces. This is where they're going to cut us off guard and say, when we give you spaces, you go off guard. The pedestal has been put there for us, and we are not even shaking the status quo. Because at 20 watts, we had the men that we want out of power. We are already in the circles of power. At 23, we had army generals, we had ministers of finance. The former president Milton Obote at 37, he was a prime minister. Now for us, what are we doing in the time? The young people that we have in parliament or the former youth leaders, apart from a few that have brought, we even have young people that were shaken to be thrown out of parliament. These were youth MPs that did not even appear at the Hansard more than thrice or 4 times. So I think our quality as young people is very shaking. And as far as democracy in Uganda, we need a steady reasoning, collected integrated generation of young people to tackle the issues of democracy, because it's too complex. It looks like it's too complex for us to fit in and make a foot stamp on the history of our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynnet. And you've brought it so quite widely and also provoked so many minds here. And I know Tanbull is itching so much to make a response here and there, but I would want to get this opportunity to invite on Ndugu Matanda, who has finally joined on. And of course, being his space and without breaking any protocols, I would want to see how to invite him in and see that he can take on the conversation. Matanda, are you here with us?
Damian.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here, Ndugu Masesa. I am very sorry. I am in Milan, Italy, and we happen to be an hour behind Uganda. And so I'm looking at my time and I was waiting for 2 p.m. So only to go on WhatsApp and find so many messages. And then I was reminded that actually Uganda is an hour behind Italy. And so I'm very sorry for that. I hope I'm able to catch up. But I already
you will catch up.
Yeah, I landed when there is a lot of fire.
So about that, you catch up, and I want to invite in Tanbull to make his comeback, a rebuttal about what have been said, and from then I will invite you to take on the platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damian. Ndugu Matanda, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, the challenge here is that we tend to mistake opposition to be subversive. Okay, you find that young people, especially young people, have been misled in one or the other. They have been given empty promises everywhere, even in NRM, everywhere in all the political majority or even several political parties, and they undertake subversive activities which are out of the traditional political party activities. Like, for instance, the incidents, the riots that took place on November 18th last year was really regrettable. We saw how young people were being misled. Yes, we cannot rule out that there were some elements of police not acting within the confines of the law, or even breaking the people who are supposed to keep law and order, breaking the law themselves. But still, was it necessary for the young people to be used to burn tires, to beat people on the streets and cause that commotion that happened? So what I'm saying is, if the opposition tries to get subversive, we have seen elements of the state security apparatus trying to apprehend them. Okay, and I want to regret where there are incidences where they have acted out of order, where they have held the opposition or treated the opposition with violence. Okay, those activities, I want to condemn them. Such incidences, I want to condemn them. But what I want still to emphasize is that within all the political parties we have in Uganda, each political party has young people who are involved at different levels, or even different structures. Okay, that is democracy itself. I want to even to bring it out like this. If there was no democracy, okay, we wouldn't have seen Bobby Wine, Honorable Robert Chagran Sentam, coming out, becoming an MP, a member of parliament, going straight to stand for the #1 office. And he inspired, of course, I want to agree. And I want to categorically state it here, that Bobi Wine did inspire many young people, okay? But did inspire many young people, even in NRM, because there are young people who have taken up political positions within NRM, and they have challenged the status quo within NRM. They have even been able to trounce, okay, the old guards that we have seen, okay, who have been in parliament for over 15, 20 years, okay? That is democracy everywhere, even within the different political parties. So there is no way for any right-thinking Ugandan, you come on and tell us that we don't have democracy in Uganda. Yes, we have some incidences, we have some isolated cases where the police or the state machinery has suppressed the subversive activities of the opposition, especially even where young people are involved. For the security of the country, the only other challenge that we see here as we speak as young people or as youth of Uganda is that we have been with President Museveni for quite so long. So in our political parties, in our small other political parties, or even big political parties, we think that because Museveni has been here for long, for 35 years, then the elections will not be free and fair. That is totally wrong. And at the same time, we have had a feeling, we have grown up with this feeling that because Museveni has been here for long and is not ready to leave, then it is a one-man's show. If there was no democracy, why would even political parties come out to participate? Okay, it is a process. Okay, changing leadership is a process, and I know President Museveni will not be here for long. But what I'm also seeing, what I've started feeling, is that whenever President Museveni comes up again or comes back again to stand for presidency and is a flag bearer for NRM, it seems to be a one-man's show. Okay, which majority of the young people would not want. Whereas NRM would feel so much contented, so much confident that President Museveni would be the one to be to hold the flag, or to hold the flag bearer for NRM. The opposition would want another person who they can bully here and there. Okay, and we feel the space is not leveled as young people because NRM has brought President Museveni over and over again. Because they feel there is this feeling that he has been here for long, so even the elections will not be free and fair. Okay? But let us focus on how organized other political parties are. Okay? And if I was not, for instance, how many political parties, how many presidential candidates are able, okay, to traverse the entire country? How many political parties or even presidents are able to get what is needed, okay, in terms of mobilization in a free space, free and open space, or even competition? There are sometimes even the opposition political leaders have tried to work out of the law or even the stipulated rules and regulations, and that is where police has come in. There are times even police has come in to violate even the set roadmap or even program. That one is clear, we know. So the youth, the young people should focus on how best they can mobilize, or we can mobilize from our localities for our different political parties, okay, so that we take up the spaces that have been occupied for quite long or for quite some time. If you cannot fight within NRM or influence within NRM, influence within NUP. influence within FDC, influence within DP, influence within JEEMA. Okay, collectively, we all want a Uganda, okay, that respects rule of law. We want to see a Uganda where the police does its work, no orders from above. We want to see a Uganda that has that has a free and fair elections. We want freedom of speech, like how we are saying here. We can talk at any time. You can go on radio, you can go on TV. Yes, we have had some cases of people who have been thrown out of radio or even TV, but we have had opposition that has kept on media. So young people have to collectively organize, okay, dialogue from within their communities, influence and determine the kind of democracy that we need as a country, Uganda. If we do that and stop the blame game of one being NRM, one being M7ist, one being of FDC, one being, we will not go anywhere. Let us organize and come on the table and dialogue as young people to determine and influence the Uganda we want.
So, Mr. Akampa, if I may come in at this point, before maybe we go to another panelist. You have made several points, including the one. Someone needs to mute their mic. I'm getting feedback. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I was asking you a question. You have made several points, and most of them seem to be challenging young people, especially those in opposition, to organize, to avoid subversive tendencies, to prepare and win elections. And in your final, towards the end, you were wondering whether the opposition political parties are organized and have capacity to organize and go to communities. I would like to pose a question to you at this point. In your view, do you think that the political environment in the country under the leadership of the NRM is favorable for people to organize, is favorable for political parties, for example, to raise funding, is favorable for political parties to hold meetings, is favorable for young people to organize and express themselves, say through a demonstration, which is a constitutional right? In your view, do you think the environment has sufficient freedom and space for such organizing? Oh, it looks like we lost him. Can someone confirm that I can be heard? I hope I'm not the one who is off.
You're clear. You're clear.
Have we lost Akampa?
I think so. So we need to move to possibly the other person.
Okay. So I will move to Akampulira then. Akampulira, you have had Akampa's assertions. As he tries to get back, maybe you can weigh in at this point.
Thank you very much, Comrade Matanda. I really don't think I have much to respond to Akampa.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Masesa. Yeah, Walakira, I think you can go now.
Yeah, so I don't think I have so much comments for Comrade Akampa Tanbull, for two main reasons, really. Number one is I don't think he will appreciate these arguments to do with democratic values and the importance and sacredness of principles like free and fair elections, because I think he's too much drunk on the privileges that he derives and his other colleagues from associating with the regime. Number two reason is because I understand his background. I know other colleagues who are in his situation, especially these colleagues, it's natural and it is historically documented that when you're on the side of the oppressor, when you derive your rents and other, forms of livelihood, you rarely understand the story of the oppressed. So colleagues like Akampa, we do not understand the importance of values like having a free and open political space. But by and large, Comrade Matanda and others who are watching, I think that as a young people of this country, we need to pick a leaf from what Che Guevara said, that we need to think in terms of masses. And it is criminal to think in terms of individual. Those were words of Che Guevara. And what he is saying here is that because of our position in the power structure, our power relies in the collective. And what the regime has successfully done is keeping us disintegrated. And because we are disintegrated and each one of us is deriving individualistic benefits, we lose the bigger picture of the common good of the nation called Uganda. So I think that all of us, wherever we belong in our political affiliations, we need to pause for a moment and identify our generational goal, located clearly in the historical time of Uganda. Until we do that, we'll continue talking with little or no impact on the power structure of our country.
Comrade,
and I think,
Comrade Akampulira, you're making a very resounding and I must say charming and attractive proposition that young people come together as a generation. But I'm just wondering, how practical is that? Because first of all, being young is a transitory stage.
Yeah.
But more than that, young people are very diverse and they have different interests.
Yeah.
So how possible is it then for young people to have a convergence of interests, and where has this happened?
Thank you so much, Matanda. I think that the very first job for you and me and other young concerned citizens lies in identification of the barriers and drivers of civic participation for the young people. We need to identify the structural barriers for participation. We need to identify barriers or obstacles at the individual level. We need to identify the cultural economic barriers. And therefore, after doing that job properly, be able to propose solutions. Number two, we need to identify the drivers. What drives change? Because if we continue to operate the way we are operating currently, I can assure you, even the 10 years are going to elapse and we have not made headways. Over to you, Comrade Matanda.
Okay, thank you very much. I can hear you. You're sounding big there. I was waiting for you to quote Frantz Fanon on our generational cause.
Yeah.
But maybe let me at this point cross over to Lynnet. Lynnet, I came in at the point when you are spitting fire, but I also listened into the response from Mr. Akampa, who was saying, no, you, as young people, you have just allowed to be used and misdirected into subversive tendencies. And that's when security agencies come in to check you. And this is not something that I've only heard from Akampa. I oftentimes hear many people who say young people now do not have a clear agenda. And when they come out, they only come out to disrupt, to loot, and to engage in destabilizing activities. And if I'm to take it from Akampulira, who seems to be calling a generation to come together, it looks like maybe there is a point in what these people are suggesting. Would you help us locate where this is, where are the young people, and if so, why are they engaging in subversive tendencies? And if they are, is it then not justified for the state sometimes to crack the whip? Over to you, Lynnet.
Thank you, Comrade Matanda. Now, Uganda has become sort of animal farm where some animals eat the other animals. And now, what is happening is young people like Comrade Akampa that are in the big league of the animals that eat these other animals think it is okay, children for the hens. It is okay. It has become the order of the day. I greatly agree with Comrade Akampulira. As young people, we should come up with a generational cause. But what do we call a generational cause? We should define our strategy very clearly as young people. And when I said define our strategy very clearly as young people, for the Musevenis, it was the bush. Now that we do not have the bush, we have tested social media and we have seen its power. We have seen the noob come with, and we have seen the power of social media. In my own submission as young people, why don't we use this digital era and put our footstep or our mark in the Constitution of Uganda or in the history of governance and democracy of Uganda? We have seen the power that social media has, if I am to answer your question correctly. What do we need to do? We know the irregularities. We have sung the song. We have talked the talk. Now it's time to do the work. How do we do the work? Dissect the problems. Get into these spaces and know. Because now, fortunate enough, we have had our young people. We have a youthful parliament. We have young people in the local government. We have young people in the civic spaces. Now we are in a little bit in the places of influence. So now, even though we are not yet at the table where power is shared, we need to know what exactly is going on in these different spaces. When we figure out what's going on in these different spaces, dissect as young people, stand together as young people. It saddens me. Have you seen the graduation of Tambogo University? As we are sitting here, we have students that are carrying on years. We already have a backlog in unemployment. A huge chunk of educated young people do not have jobs. But we are not even having a conversation of why are our children not in school? A huge chunk of young girls are pregnant. But as young people right now, our concern is we have not identified that this is a concern. These are young people these are the next youth after us that are out here not going to school, that are out here becoming young mothers, that are out here affected by the circumstances of COVID. We are not having such discussions as young people, and it saddens me. And then there are campers that are empowered by the animal farm, do not see any fault whatsoever that the police will brutalize people. They do not see any fault whatsoever that some presidential candidate will be given access to all that very many districts of Uganda and others wouldn't. Then as young people, we have failed. In my own opinion, let us fold the tool that we have, which is social media, which is the digital era, and use it wisely so that we can put a stamp in the history of Uganda as a generation that caused that change. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you. But before you go, Lynnet, at this point,
Yes.
I want us to move the torch a bit from the regime and try to look into political parties, because you have mentioned young people in parliament, young people in civil society, I also know that there are young people in bodies like UNSA, like the National Youth Council, and there are also youth leagues of political parties. I know that you lead one such youth league. How democratic and relevant are these organizations? And I hope that in your answer, you'll even be able to tell us how democratic political parties are internally, because we may be pointing at the government, but when even the institutions where we are or where we operate ourselves are not as democratic. So how democratic and relevant are youth leagues in political parties and then these bodies, UNSA, National Youth Council and Parliament? Because if we must organize, as you're calling us to, we need these institutions to organize around them. But do they have the viability for us to organize around them? Do for us some analysis.
Apart from the political parties, which other institution is constructed in the multi-party dispensation? Even the MPs, our youth MPs, which of these bodies is constituted as the multi-party dispensation? That's food for thought. Now, for me as a young person, I think we cannot complain of water and not integrate whether the mother stream was stained at its birth or not. Multi-party dispensation was stained at the birth of it by the leading regime. So we are integrating democracy in our parties, but it's not even facilitated by the government. Even when you tell me we should move away from the regime, Honorable Matanda, you can tell me holding a 50 people meeting as the ants will cause arms, tear gas, and what so not come and by the ruling government to come and cancel that meeting. So you cannot organize in an atmosphere like that. We are trying to emulate democracy, but we cannot emulate democracy when the mother stream that is supposed to give birth to the democracy that we are supposed to emulate is already tainted. We are bound to have we are bound to have springs of dirty water because the mother stream was tainted in its birth. Do you get my point? So for me, I think we are doing our best in political parties. The mere fact that we even have these constitutions of youth leagues and whatnot. Tell me, how many political parties are in operation at this point now? How many political parties do we have in operation right now? NRM is continuing in lockdown. We cannot meet our delegates. If we are to meet them, we are to meet them on Zoom, which is very costly, of which the monies that are supposed to be given us by government have very many strings attached, and a huge chunk of the money that's supposed to be distributed to political parties goes to the ruling government still. So really, I think political parties are operating in they are handcuffed in operation, and we cannot complain of them not being democratic when the birth of democracy in Uganda was stained at its birth. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lynette. I've been informed that Brother Akampa is back. Akampa, can you confirm that you can hear me, and we confirm that you can speak?
Yes, live and clear.
Yes, my question to you was, you had stated that there is a lot of democracy in the country, that there are elections, that there are parties, and that security agencies often come in only to check subversive tendencies. And you made a call to young people, especially those in opposition, to get organized and push for issues and look beyond the parties. And my question to you was, would you describe the political situation in Uganda as that is open and free enough to facilitate the kind of organization you're talking about? For example, to enable the political parties you're talking about mobilize funds, to enable them hold meetings, to enable them share views on different platforms. Because from what I hear from Lynnet, it appears like that space does not exist. So speak to us about that.
Okay. Thank you, Ndugu Matanda, and all the panelists and the people listening in. Well, first and foremost, as much as I belong to NRM, okay, in my articles, the articles that I've written or even I wrote during campaigns, I have always condemned police brutality, okay, on citizens, and at the same time, in the same equal measures, I've condemned violence, okay? Whichever parties, yes, there is where police has acted outside the law, there is where police has acted inhuman, that one I agree, but at the same time, there is also where us young people have been used to be violent. Now, given the political environment that we have, or even the current environment that we have, I want to agree with you on the shrinking civic space. It is true the civic space has shrunk, okay? And one of the reasons as to why the state has continuously suppressed the civic space or even civic spaces is that we have had even civil society organizations and also political parties, civil society organizations that have wanted to do the work of opposition political parties, or even some civil society organizations that have also acted, have been involved in subversive tendencies or even activities. Intelligence reports have this, okay? I wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't want to go deeper. But at the same time, it is a challenge now for us, the young people, okay? That how more better or how more innovatively can we organize and beat the status quo or even challenge the status quo. Our spaces, the spaces belong to us. It depends on how innovatively we use these spaces. The other issue I want to put across regarding the spaces is that you find that COVID has made things worse, okay? You don't know which is which. Even at the start, COVID came in when we were starting campaigns, okay? And so sometimes the standard operating procedures have been violated by the police, okay, or even the security agencies. But at the same time, we have had political parties themselves, not just NRM, even from within NRM, we have had elements of people violating the standard operating procedures, the preventive measures against COVID-19. It is still here. So at the moment, or in the meantime, or for this period we are in, it is very tricky, okay, for political parties to organize. We have even had not just opposition, we have even had in NRM where NRM members have been tear gassed, okay? Have been tear gassed. Why? Because they have broken, they have not followed the standard operating.
Akampa, maybe for purposes of reference, which NRM members were tear gassed?
My friend, we have had NRM members being tear gassed in Mubende and Mityana. You've not heard about that? Even
no, I believe many people may have not heard, so you just give us a reference.
Okay. I might not have the references off head or on the fingertips, but we have seen even these in the media, okay? On news, on television, and even heard on radio. Okay, but now what we need to do, let me first come back to the political parties or even the youth, how youth are organized. FDC, for instance, FDC is more organized because it has structures, and their structures, they can communicate, they send information, and communication is easier because they have organized in some districts. Like for instance, if we were to go to Rukunjiri, okay? But the challenge is, as young people, how are we positioning ourselves, okay, to see that we do not just stop at what is hindering us, okay, to discuss or even to converge. Like for instance, we are discussing, okay, have we met in one place, but we are able to converse, we are able to discuss innovatively using the IT, the technology that we are talking about. It is also a space. Space is not just about the physical space, people coming in numbers together, okay? It can be using technology to reach out your information. I was telling some people that were discussing the transition. I told them, by the way, that the generation of the Musevenis was more organized than the generation of today, the generation we have. You can even say the generation of the Kainerugaba, the son, and others. Why? In those days, they didn't have the social media platforms we are talking about. We have Twitter, we have the Zoom, we have the Google Chrome, where we can discuss, where we can even send video clips or even audio clips that are not censored, okay? But we have failed to understand what we stand for as young people of Uganda. We cannot unite because we have different varying interests, okay? We cannot unite because people are creating individual interests, and they would want these individual interests to be the interest of the nation. Okay, so in that case or in that scenario, what do we do as young people? Young people have to organize. We have to organize more. We have to be smarter more, and it should not stop at what I mean. Today, Ndugu Matanda, you and I, we have come a very long way. And Lynnet, we have been meeting in different political forums or even dialogues or even civil society spaces. The next Uganda has to be for those who are organized. Whether we choose to organize within our political parties, whether we choose to organize from our environments or even our communities where we live, it's a matter of time. Where do we want to see Uganda in the next 15, 20, 30 years from now? After Museveni is not here for more years. So what we do now today, Lynnet, today Akampulira Walakira is in Noob. The next day or even tomorrow, I might also join him in Noob. So, but depending on the values that Noob has, depending on the values that Ant has, depending on the values that NRM will be having then, if it will still be living, what we need is, let's keep the focus, keep in our political spaces where they are, challenge the status quo. If we happen to get to another level, okay, influence from where we are. Each and every person is supposed to influence the status quo from wherever he or she is. Okay.
Yes, I'll be coming back to you.
Let me first conclude.
Okay,
in a non-violent and confrontive way. We only have to dialogue, demand, and influence step by step.
Okay, thank you very much, Akampa. Allow me now to cross to you, Mr. Walakira. I would like to take us now from our divisive politics as a country to discuss democracy as a value. this discussion is an extension of the 15th August, which is the International Day of Democracy. And we all sound like we are all campaigners of democracy. And every political party claims it works for democracy and honors democracy as a value. But I want you to help us do some analysis about our population. There have been voices that suggest that maybe democracy cannot work for us, that maybe democracy was made for other societies. Someone just here in the chat is asking, our biggest problem right now in the country seems to be unemployment because of the youth bulge. How effective is this value for us? How much has this value of democracy been accepted by our people? Is it just an elitist notion? Is it just a wish list that we keep discussing, but when in practice we cannot stand by the ideals? And if it is plausible, how can we employ democracy to deal with our challenges like unemployment? Over to you, Mr. Walakira.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Comrade Matanda. You know, this is really a complex subject to discuss, I must concede. I think that there are two distinct schools of thought on whether democracy is a prerequisite for development or whether economic development is a prerequisite for democracy. And yes, each side has examples to give. Those arguing that you need democracy in order to develop sustainably, you know, have so many examples to give. You know, the West is full of examples to give. And those also who argue for the other side that, you know, you need to first establish a certain minimum package of economic conditions in order for you to have sustainable democracy, also have the examples. And, you know, an easy one to pick on is the case of Singapore with Lee Kuan Yew. And there's also a case of China. I mean, we have with their state capitalism and state dictatorship. And China, you know, is racing to becoming the foremost superpower in the world. Well, my position is that there is no one size fits all study or from which we can draw upon as a nation. I think that it is incumbent upon the intellectual power of the society, really society, governments, aristocracies of knowledge. And we are who we are based on our intellectual power, whether that is expressed in our built environment, whether that is expressed in our social or political institutions. We are who we are because of our collective thought power. So if our built environment is disorganized, is not modernized, it doesn't encourage economic development, that in a way directly shows where we have come in as far as building that tower of knowledge. When you look at an American society and you think it is organized, you think it is durable, you think it is resilient, you think it gives democratic freedoms, that shows the extent in which the American people have come in as far as building the knowledge power for their society. So as Africans, as Ugandans, we also must carefully craft out a model that works for us. The case of Rwanda is that of Singapore. Do I judge them whether they are right or wrong? Maybe I'm not in a position to do that. But what is for sure is that in this age, in the 21st century, there are certain freedoms and fundamental values that we should never trade off for anything, because it is, at the end of the day, human beings. It should be a society in it and by itself which decides what is to be a priority and what is not to be a priority. If the people of Rwanda think that they would rather have economic liberation at the cost of certain freedoms, that is a question for them. And the same applies here in Uganda. Speaking individually and for many young people that I associate with, I don't think that we should sacrifice our freedoms of expression, our freedoms of association, our privacy, and other democratic values for economic development. Because you can have economic development, but for who? If you have skyscrapers, you have world-class roads, but these world-class roads are used or at the benefit of a very small, minute class. I don't think that is desirable, and that's why you still have an advanced society like the USA and many others like China. On an economic index, they are doing pretty well. But when you look at the quality and the value of life, you find that this economic benefit or economic advancement has been and is and will always be for just a small segment of society. Yes. So in the final analysis, really, in the final argument, you realize that democratic ideals are noble, are more superior than anything else. And whereas for them to be sustained, there is need for a certain minimum level of economic development for people to check those in power, not to become, dictatorial. I think that the pursuit of democracy, the pursuit of democratic values is one of the most noble ideals, the most noble pursuit that the history of mankind has I beg your pardon, Matanda. My point is that the pursuit of democratic values is the most noble pursuit, and economic, social, and otherwise come secondary.
So in your view, so far, because Uganda has tried maybe to draw that line, is that to say the values are applicable everywhere, including in our society? Do you feel that the people have moved along with this value of democracy, which seems to be alien, or is it even alien? You could engage with that as well.
Yeah, I want to begin with a statement by Martin Luther. He said that the arc of history is a long one, but it bends towards justice. In Uganda, we have oppression, we have abuse of power, we have dictatorship, we have a small group of people in the government who have come together to eat on behalf of others. It's very hard to see. It's very hard to see the direction that the country is taking, where there has been improvement on a whole, not because of the quality of leadership, but because globally human societies, just as a mere fact of time, advance. There's nothing special in our case to say that this has been because of our ingenuity. Of course, that is absurd, that you cannot say we are making progress on a democratic end, nor can you say we are making tremendous progress on the economic end. But by and large, by progress of time, the oppressive elements, the oppressive regimes become overtaken by the greater force of the people. The Ugandan society as a whole, the collective desire to be free, to be independent, their pursuit of happiness, to break free from want, eventually supersedes dictatorial tendencies. So I can say, yes, I am hopeful that 10 years, 20 years, Uganda, on a democratic end, would be a better society.
Okay, thank you very much, Walakira. I've got a notification that you have to run, and I would maybe ask you at this point to answer the question of whether opposition, because multipartyism is a very great strand of democracy. So you could speak for opposition and answer the question on whether opposition presents a viable alternative, because the regime is as bad as you have described, maybe, but does opposition represent a viable alternative that someone can count on and Ugandans can look up to? And then you could maybe have your parting shot and we can excuse you.
Yeah, you know, Matanda, I have had that question quite a lot. And I think it comes from a distorted point of view. When we ask of alternatives, many people quickly run to alternatives in the form of ideas for good governance, for institutional building, for health, economic, and other policies. That is not a problem. As humanity, we have already identified or already accumulated enough knowledge on how we can develop a society or on how we can fail a society. So that the issue is not about new ideas or new policies. No. We have enough examples of what's to be done, and everyone, whether in the government or whether in the opposition, or not even a politician, and this doesn't have to be even a politician. It only takes interest and care of anyone interested in the question of good governance or nation building to quickly arrive at the right models that we need to develop the Ugandan society. In my opinion, the problem of Uganda is that of politics. We have weak politics, and weak politics come by when you have dishonest people, a group of dishonest people who are still fighting for resources, who become corrupted by the desire for power, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So because you have individuals who have been corrupted by the benefits and the privileges of being in power, all institutions die. The institutions of state become captured. The goal no longer becomes, the primary goal no longer becomes that of nation building and advancement of society as a whole, but that of entrenching themselves in power in order to continue eating. It breeds a group of people who are benefiting not because they are qualified or not because of their skills, not because they are genuinely earning these privileges or benefits, but because they are associated to the ruling class. So eventually you develop a culture where people no longer are concerned about merit. People are no longer concerned about productivity of the society. And the society somehow, the economic systems that are supposed to bring out the potent force of that society die out. That is our dilemma. So our struggle is a struggle of removing those bad, corrupt leaders from capturing the state and replacing it with good intended leaders who are concerned not with self-enrichment and enrichment of kinsmen and tribesmen, but with who are concerned with the advancement of the Ugandan society.
So Mr. Akampa, that's right there where the question is, that does the opposition in Uganda represent that? Does it have good men, and I would add women, who are of integrity, who are not just self-centered and selfish-seeking? Because people possibly have reasons to watch the behavior of some of them and say it appears not.
I must tell you, Comrade Matanda, that each and every society is as good as the active participation of its citizens. Citizens continually exerting pressure for good behavior of the politicians.
Yes.
If NUP does not develop strong democratic institutions as a political party, it will ultimately fall the same same vices like the NRM has become. There is no single individual who will salvate, who will liberate Uganda. The question of liberation of Uganda is a question of everyone. And that's why authors who have studied this question have concluded that to achieve that point of safety, where the society is free and safe from individuals who capture the state, is the need for the critical mass of the enlightened citizens who are actively engaged in the political life of that society. So it is a collective problem, not a problem of NUP, not a problem of NRM, not a problem of the DP, not a problem of any civil society organization, not CCG, not any individual, not Bob Wine, not Kiza Message, not Mudisha Muntu. It is a collective society problem. It is one that will not be achieved in one lap. It takes time, takes patience, takes organization, takes building, and takes all of us. And that's why civic education and the job that is being done by Center for Constitutional Governance is remarkable. And that's why we need more of that. We need more civil society organizations that are genuinely concerned about empowering the citizens of Uganda with knowledge, ask for accountability. Because what we are witnessing is that there is low demand for accountability from the Ugandan citizens. So we need to identify the barriers to low demand for accountability by the citizens and the drivers. What are the barriers and the drivers to that? So when we begin to have more strong civil society like CCG, once we attain that critical mass that is actively engaged, and I agree with Lynnet that technology is one of those ways. Now with more technology and information coming out, like in the case of Nabanja, that when you use public offices corruptly, the fear for being exposed, like Nabanja has been, drives public officials to be more accountable. So we need more citizen journalism. We need a more active and vibrant civil society. We need a more active and vibrant students movement. We need stronger and vibrant political party institutions. We need more and vibrant farmer organizations. Those are cooperative societies. We need more and vibrant teachers unions. We need more and vibrant workers associations. So have you. These were the driving forces in Germany. They were the driving and democratizing forces in England. They were the driving and democratizing forces in the USA. So there will never be any single institution, political party, whether opposition anywhere, unless the citizens are actively engaged. And that is where the entire job is to be done.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Akampulira Walakira. You wouldn't have ended it on a better note. We appreciate the time you commit, even within your busy schedules in the middle of the week, to be with us on the Youth Roundtable. And we know that this is part of the effort you're describing to see that we awaken the conscience of our people. Now I will cross over, but you are excused. We are happy if you stay around, but allow me now to engage the other panelists. And Lynnet, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, though your network has become a bit unstable. I don't know if you're moving.
Yes, I found the communication that I'm struggling, and I think my network will be funny. Hopefully for now you can hear me. Is that okay?
No, it's not. The sound is creaking. So possibly, maybe let me engage Akampa as you try to find a way of stabilizing it.
All right.
Yeah, you can mute. So Akampa, when I was listening to, at some point I almost got confused because your submission was neither here or there. On one side you're blaming opposition, on another you're blaming security. Well, on one side you're saying we can't organize because there are some challenges, on another you're saying we should organize. And so I want to lift you from just the fora of our politics as it is and sort of discuss democracy as a value. I know that you belong to the NRM, and one of the 4 principles that the NRM talks about as being its foundational principles is democracy. But it's rare to hear some leaders in the NRM who come out sometimes and say, this democracy can't work. The problem of Uganda is that we have given it too much democracy. They say this is a Western concept. So if you can speak to us about democracy in the context of the NRM, when NRM talks about democracy, what do they mean? And if it is the democracy that all of us are talking about, how far has the NRM government gone in entrenching the values of democracy in our society?
Okay, thank you, Ndugu Matanda, and all the listeners out there. Where to put it clear, it's not that I was blaming the opposition or even blaming police or blaming the youth. What is wrong is wrong. Okay, with me, what is wrong, even when I'm in NRM. Okay, and what is bad is bad. Okay, so as much as I'm an NRM member, I have to talk the truth the way I see it. Okay, and I cannot defend something that I see is bad in my own capacity. Maybe if I was Ofono Opondo of sorts, but at the moment I'm speaking as a Ugandan citizen, okay, who belongs to NRM, and where the government does good, I will say it. Okay, where the NRM, the government elements are brutal on citizens, I will say they are brutal. Okay, and that is what every citizen should stand for. Okay, putting away our political parties aside, as citizens, it should be country first, country Uganda, our motherland first. Okay, what is right is right, what is bad, what is wrong is wrong. Well, coming back to values and democracy within NRM, I see our democracy growing or even being strengthened. And for example, I can give you the just concluded elections for the Speaker of the 11th Parliament. Okay. It was a tight race between Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, and Right Honorable Jacobo Olanya. So as much as the Central Executive Committee of NRM stood their ground and said, we want Jacob Olanya to be the flag bearer for speaker, okay, for speakership. Others had to pull out, okay, those who are, especially those who are standing, the deputies were sent for an election by caucus, but Rebecca Kadaga said, no, I will continue and go as an independent, okay, which he did. She was on the ballot, okay, and the time for voting came. Whether there was influence behind corridors or not, but to me that was democracy. It was a sign of a growing democracy in Uganda, okay, and it was a sign for caucus to stand and say, no, this is what we have followed as caucus and our democracy for Central Executive Committee and our democracy, our constitution says this and that, but this is what we want to do. This is the speaker we want. This is the candidate we want. Okay, that is a sign of democracy. Whoever does not see that, then
democracy is not just abstract. In your example, you say, and I want to get your opinion on that right there. One of the tenets of democracy is what is called separation of powers. The idea being that there is an executive, there is a legislature, and there is a judiciary. The executive implements government programs. The legislature, among other roles, oversees or oversights the executive. And when there are conflicts or issues, the judiciary acts as an arbiter. Now, in this case, we saw in the election of the leader of one of those arms, the head of the executive, which the legislature is supposed to oversight, coming out to say that he spent the whole night calling people and, investing resources in influencing the outcome. Does that look like democracy to you?
I think when whether he slept, he did not sleep or not, the leader of the executive, is that we don't have to forget that as much as he's the leader of the executive, he had not, at the same time, he still remains the chairman of NRM, okay, of the party, okay. So by law, by the virtue that he's the chairman of NRM, he has to do whatever it takes, okay, to make sure that the interests of the party are protected.
Above the interest of the country.
The party. He was acting as the NRM chairperson, not as the president of the Republic of Uganda. And I think, what I see there, I think if one assumes the position of a president of a party, I would recommend that he or she ceases to be the NRM, the party chairman at the same time. Okay, but by law, it is you have a president of a political party, you have a president of a country who is at the same time a chairman of a political party. So those are interests, those are different interests that would call or even call on him or even enable him, okay, to act in the capacity of the interest of NRM, okay, even when he is the president of the country, okay. So what I think the framers of the constitution should come back to their constitution, the constitution of the country, Uganda, or even the constitution of our different political parties, and categorically make it clear that if one becomes a president of a political party or even a president of a country, Uganda, he or she should cease to be a chairman of that political party. Okay? So as we speak now, the constitution allows him to act in two capacities. The capacity of being a president of a country, Uganda, and the capacity of being the NRM chairman. Okay? So whether he did not sleep or not, he was acting within the constitution to see that the interest of his political party, NRM, okay, come hand.
Yeah, yes.
Okay?
So by proposing that there should be a change of law such that a party leader is not at the same time the president of the country,
yeah, sure.
Are you suggesting that that practice is undemocratic and therefore, whereas it is legal and it was carried out, you think it's not a good thing? It's not a democratic position?
Because it is not stated anywhere within our constitution, okay? Then that practice was not illegal.
Yes,
it was not.
So it was illegal, but in your view, it is undemocratic because it creates a conflict of interest.
Being a president, okay? Being a president and you interfere within the party politics, okay? Or you influence party politics is undemocratic to me, okay? So what we can do, what we should do, the framers of the constitutions, whether political parties or even our own different political parties, or even the constitution of the country, Uganda, should come out clear and say, in order to grow with democracy and strengthen our democracy, whoever assumes the office of the president should cease to be a party chairperson or chairman. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much, Akampa. Parts of my question still stand, and I'll be coming back to you to answer the question of how far, what democracy means in NRM, and how far the NRM has gone. You have partly answered it. And also, I'd like to tell you that I know of a political party called the Alliance for National Transformation that has gone ahead to implement that. So the party leader cannot run for political office. So possibly you can propose that as an amendment within the constitution of your party. But allow me at this point to bring in Lynnet, who now says she has access to a more stable network. Lynnet, can we test that? Lynnet, are you there?
I guess yes. Is this fine?
Yeah. That sounds fine.
Matanda, do you hear me? Do
yes,
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Confirm that you can hear me as well.
I can hear you.
Yes, so I know that you have been following the conversation, and we have now moved to a level where we are trying to interrogate the question of democracy. Democracy comes with a number of things like free and fair elections, things like freedom of expression and assembly, access to information, all the rights that I know we all know very well, things like the rule of law. So there are some people who say that these things sound very nice, but our population is not ready for them. And that whereas you politicians keep demanding for them, our population is not capable of understanding them, and no wonder it does not demand for what belongs to it. And during elections, it is things like tribalism, things like money and commercialization that end up carrying the day. So I would want to understand from you, what is your understanding of democracy, and how far do you think the Ugandan people, including the young people, have bought into democracy, or should we think about another system? Lynnet.
Matanda, I have a very unpopular opinion when it comes to democracy and how it operates in countries. For me, I think democracy should not be a one size shoe fit all. If we think that the democracy in Uganda does not integrate well with our people do not understand it, we can try and design a democracy that works for us. Citing from what Akampulira was speaking about, I think we have rendered democracy a one size shoe that fits all, which should not be the ideal setting of democracy. We owe it to ourselves to choose what works for us as a nation, as a country. That's why the democracy in US is not the democracy in England. Is not. We should operate within what works for us. And I think it is very wrong for people to say that people do not understand democracy. Uganda as a nation, as a country, has been practicing leadership from the kingship, from the chiefdomships, from all of these settings. You would see it was leadership, and it was organization, and it was democracy. The problem is we have eliticized democracy, and we think it can only operate in the elite manner, which is very wrong. I can tell you, Uganda was developing. The rate at Uganda, was. Why does English disturb me this much?
The rate at which
Uganda was developing under Idi Amin. Surprisingly, a person who is not even an elitist, or someone who would call an educated president a dictator, which most of them are, is not the same rate that Uganda is developing at under an elite system, a more probably organized system. You understand? We are
is that true though? Do you have any examples?
Matanda, if they say, if history has it that the time Idi Amin was the president of Uganda, our rate of growth was the same as Singapore, and today Singapore is thrice or 4 times better than us. What does that tell you? We do not have to eliticize everything. We have to look at the plain things and the plain simple truths if we want to go forth with what's going on. What does that tell you? So for me, I think democracy is not one shoe size fits all. And secondly, if something does not work, and you clearly know it does not work, there is no reason why you should stick on it. For the 58 years that Uganda has had democracy and governance and all these things that we call leadership, it has been through war, through dictatorship, and it has not worked for us. I subscribe to a party that thinks it should not be confrontational and all that. I subscribe to a party that thinks we should have honest conversations about our country, our cultures. Because one of the things why democracy fails to work in our country, because we have not integrated the cultures, the background, the history, the location. These are all components that we should integrate for democracy to work for a certain nation or a country. But if we want to copy a democracy that worked in the UK and borrow it and forget about the cultures, the norms, the integration of people, the languages, the location of the country itself, and just borrow something and just fix it here, we are going to have a problem with it working for us. We should find something that integrates our cultures, our norms, our languages, are different, because we are different.
Yes.
And difference is okay. We should accept that difference is okay. That's why we have a parliamentary system in the UK. We have a monarchy system in a monarchy system in the UK. We have a senator system in the US. It's entirely a different conversation. And these are the countries that we emulate and say, oh, these countries have democracy, but they do not do the same thing. So why are we practically forcing ourselves to do the same things?
Wow.
You see, so I want to greatly agree with Akampulira. Democracy is not a one size shoe fits all. If we think the one that we have now or the one we have had for the 58 years has not been working for us, we should sit down, re-strategize. If federal worked, then why don't we borrow federal and see how it works? Why don't we borrow some other options? Or we can create a democracy that works for us, that will integrate our cultures, our norms, and the different groups of people that are in Uganda to make a perfect combination or a perfect blend that will bring out the type of leadership that we want for our country.
Yeah, so you have made a very good case for us coming up with a model that works with us or for us. I don't know whether you have any specific examples of the norms you're talking about and parts of the culture you're talking about, which parts of democracy do you think are not applicable and have not worked for us, and which contributions can we, which norms and which parts of our culture can we bring on board to maybe make this democracy work better? Is that something you've thought about?
For instance, Matanda, we often say tribalism and all that. But before the introduction of the new democracy, or the democracy that we claim now, kingdoms and different settings, chiefdoms, were developing their societies. And it worked then. Why don't we borrow that model of, probably it's just an insight, why don't we borrow that model and say, if then Buganda was developing at this rate, Bunyoro was developing, Itesot was developing, what did they do then? If the kingdom setting worked, why don't we borrow probably, or decentralization of power and say, not in the way it is decentralized now, and say, probably bring back the federal system. I'm just picking your brain on certain things. Probably bring back the federal system. Probably we can develop something, or if not the federal system, probably integrate something that integrates all of this, so that we do not have cases of tribalism. We don't cite cases of these ones are developing more than these ones, and all of these things that are happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's my take.
Yeah, your take is really exciting.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you're the chairperson of the Interparty Youth Platform.
No, currently, no, I have signed out.
Okay.
I am the chairperson of the People's Progressive Party, still a participating member of the Interparty Youth Platform, but not the chair now.
Okay, so as a senior member,
we have rotated already.
Okay, that's great. That sounds nice. Maybe that's part of what we need to incorporate in our democracy, to rotate the leadership in the regions of Uganda. But as a member of the Interparty Youth Platform, as the Youth Roundtable, we ask you to take that conversation to the Interparty Youth Platform, such that you, the youth leaders of Uganda, start to think about a potential hybrid system that we can have. And so this conversation is very interesting and we would not want it to stop, but we are bad on time. And so I'm going to ask you, our very good panelists, to make your concluding remarks in about a minute, and then we can take this conversation to social media, maybe starting with Akampa. Akampa, about a minute or two for you to conclude.
Can you start with me, because my network is still going to get disorganized?
Okay, it's well, you can go first. Your concluding remarks.
Oh, okay, my concluding remarks is not all hope is lost. We can still make something out of nothing, and not that we are starting from nothing. The good thing is we have initiated the conversations. We should continue having these conversations. We should dialogue as much as possible. We should spread out the gospel, spread this conversation as much as possible. I come from Buganda, and in Buganda they say adingana maolu amarana gajamu mukuto. When you eat leftovers, eventually you will become satisfied. So let us not die of hunger. Well, we have resources like resourceable people like you, Honorable Matanda. Are you an advocate now? An advocate, sir.
Yes.
We have resourceful people. Let's continue engaging and spreading the word, and bringing as more people as we can on board, so that we can enlighten our nation and enlighten our young people and enlighten whoever needs to be enlightened to make Uganda a better place. Thank you very much. If you do not hear from me anymore, my network has jumped on me. It is well. I wish you a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lynnet. We don't take your time for granted. Thank you for committing time on this Tuesday afternoon to share, and we appreciate the insights. Yes, Mr. Akampa, parting shot.
Yes, Ndugu Matanda.
Yes.
It's been a wonderful intellectual discourse. But what we need to look at as a country is democracy, putting aside the democracy, there is no any standard democracy that is universally a standard model that is universally applicable. Okay, so societies determine, or even different communities determine how they will be led and who will lead them. Of course, you have issues of minority taking charge of the country and taking decisions on behalf of the majority. And still democracy is competitive. Those who have power would want to maintain the power they have. Okay, those who do not have power would even still struggle more, furthermore, to get power from those who are holding it now. Okay, and that is democracy. That is democracy. There is no one, there is nowhere it will ever be that you don't have the minority or even the few leading the majority, or even manipulating the majority. I should say manipulating the majority on behalf of so as to take the country forward, or even a given society forward. Well, forward, what I see is that those who have power should be open to discuss ideas on how to take a given society or even country forward. Another thing that I note is that we should have a governance system, okay, that does not make people feel they are hopeless, okay, they are being suppressed. We should have a system, a governance system that brings or even empowers region after region, region after region to take over, or even to become the number one, to take up the number one office of the land or within the land. For example, in Uganda, the truth is people feel their hope, they are becoming hopeless because we have a president who has been here for over 35 years. Okay. Now, what we should be looking at as a next generation of leaders is how can we rotate power? How can we shift the power center, power and authority from the west to the central, from the central to the north, from the north to the east, from the east back to the west, so that communities or even societies within Uganda that make up the Republic of Uganda as a nation, they feel they have not been left out from the national cake. Okay, but that discussion can only be by you, Matanda, Nanyonjo Lynnet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because
okay.
I was going to tell you that your party chairman does not agree with you. He tells you that you should focus on the what, not the who, and the presidency is not a cake sharing position, but a position, a revolutionary position to transform the country. But yes, please conclude. Yes, conclude in about 30 seconds.
Because him and his group fought a war. They went to the bush, and that is, you know, where you know what they say, you know, the environment they are coming from, or even when they talk, they forget that times have changed or trends have changed. But all in all, they came, captured, they went to the bush, captured power, and now they are struggling to keep power. And so even us, even if it was his son, by the way, even if it was his son, I'm seeing their sons, the sons and the descendants of NRA also struggling to take power away from their fathers. So, but anyway,
yes.
all in all,
yeah, in 20 seconds.
All in all, I want to thank you for being a great panelist. I want to thank a great moderator. I want to thank all the panelists and all those who are listening in. I want to thank CCG, Demian. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a great job. Let's continue talking talking, dialoguing, engaging and engaging. The civic space is still available. This is one way of how innovatively and creatively we can determine, influence, and demand the Uganda we want. Putting political parties aside, Uganda is bigger than any of us and any of our political parties. For God and my country, I sign out.
Yes, thank you very much, Akampa, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you and Nanyonjo Lynnet and Brother Akampulira Walakira for sparing time to be panelists on this discussion. I also want to thank those who have been following and sending in questions and comments in the chat. If I can run through some of them, I see Odong Colvin, you said, but sincerely, young people, so long as we are still focusing on our selfish political interest, forgetting of the diversity, we shall never succeed in the war. After all these numerous years, a well-educated young person who might have grown up in a well-fenced area, not looking at the diversity of the political forum, it beats my understanding. Ahmed has also been very active. Ahmed, you said, I strongly disagree with the first panelist who said NUP and JEEMA and PPP having won parliamentary seats in the just concluded election is a sign of democracy. I want to inform him that democracy is beyond political parties and holding elections even after 5 years. Democracy is rather a competition of ideas and citizen participation, freedom of speech, etc. We have seen Mr. Museveni violating all principles of democracy. This man says, no, real, I think we have been served with democracy all the 35 years, because it seems some people think that it should be given at 100%, which it cannot happen. David Bowie said democracy in Uganda is just in theory, but God will see us through all this confusion of NRM beneficiaries. Jake Mugambe, you quipped in and said, since the discussion is about the role of youth in democracy, how can we use democracy to improve employment opportunities? I put that question to panelist Akampa, and I hope you're able to get your answer. Though Akampa, you responded to Jake and said, through democracy, we should be able to have leaders who make policies that deliberately create a conducive environment that enables economic growth that comes along with employment opportunities. You also went ahead, Tanbull, to say the leaders have to be straightforward thinking as well as innovative in the policies they make to create unemployment, or otherwise things will become worse. Ahmed came back and argued in a very long post that let's not be gullible. The current political climate cannot allow opposition political parties to operate. We live in a country where political parties are barred from conducting internal elections. Even after 5 or 2 years, political parties carry out grassroots elections to form their national delegates conferences and youth elections, but the one in power makes sure that it doesn't happen. Political Parties and Organizations Act talks about facilitating political parties with representation in parliament to help in the running of their activities, but government through the Ministry of Finance make sure they remit little or no money to the political parties for fear of competition. I conclude that the ruling party has made it hard for opposition parties at all levels to compete favorably. That's Ahmed. Akampa, you came back and guided that power never comes on a silver platter, especially in a growing democracy like Uganda. Those who have power struggle to keep it thriving. Those without it will always struggle to take it. It's upon the opposition to organize better, more innovatively, strategically to take power. Ahmed came back and said the ruling party has frustrated all avenues of opposition political parties to organize socially, economically, financially. Initially, they were using POMA, and now they have weaponized COVID-19 to deter political parties from organizing. Africans, we made a mistake of letting the Western world describe democracy for us. Finally, Jonah, you said, using a kingdom setting, this I think was a response to panelist Lynnet, that using a kingdom setting, like you suggest, will bring separations among the already separated society. I don't think that would promote democracy. We ended with a question from Eunice. If the definition of democracy is inappropriate, can things get better? And he asked, can all political parties discuss at the same level when it comes to matters of the people of Uganda? Wow, I want to say we are very grateful for a very engaging discussion. I want to ask that we now shift this discussion from Zoom and take it to YouTube, take it to Twitter, take it to Facebook. The Youth Roundtable is happy to have all these conversations going on. The basic objective of our conversations here is to see that we build a better country. We hope that through these conversations, we understand each other better, we clarify positions, we understand democracy, we understand where our country is, such that we all see where we can chip in as individuals, as groups. I want to say our motto here is freedom always. And all the things you hear here, those that you agree with and those you don't agree with, ours is to provide a platform where they can all come out. I can't stop saying thank you to the panelists and saying thank you to all of you who have followed the conversation and sent in your questions and comments. The Youth Roundtable happens every week, so just always look up for the next conversation. Until we meet next week, it's goodbye from me.